Sweet. What's it like to announce some of the biggest sporting events in the world? Well, we're about to find out because I am joined by Alan Roach, who's going to give his story, some of his favorite sports memories, and we're going to talk about some of the projects that he's involved in. That's all coming up next right here on the Denver Sports Podcast. Welcome in, everyone, to the Denver Sports Podcast. It is a beautiful day here in the Mile High City. I am Christian Saez, joined by a very special guest, the voice of pretty much all things Colorado sports at one point in your life at some point. Alan Roach joining me. Alan, first of all, thank you for taking the time to hang out with us today.
Thank you for having me. Beautiful day.
It really is. It really is. I mean, I can't complain. I know you got a couple days off because the Avs are heading out right now, so figured this was a perfect opportunity to get some information on your story and your experiences, some of your favorite memories, and just kind of hear more about you as a broadcaster, because you've certainly done a lot to add to your resume. And
I got good stories.
You've got some good stories. I'm sure of it. And the first one I want to start with, because I was doing some research myself. Full transparency, didn't grow up in Colorado. So I was doing some research and came across an interesting little sub-note saying that your name is actually not Alan Roach. I don't know if everyone knows that yet. Tell me the backstory behind that.
Most if you ever Google me, it shows up everywhere. And when I first started with this new name, which I'll tell you about, all of the newspaper reporters would always say Alan Roach, whose real name is Kelly Burnham.
You're right.
And so, yeah, it actually started as a radio thing.
Okay.
I started in radio way back in high school in Minnesota. In 1982, it's between my sophomore and junior year of high school. And I picked the name Kelly O'Shea because I thought a radio name.
It flows,
It's a radio name.
Kelly O'Shea.
Top of the morning to you. It's Kelly O'Shea. And I had that name, all the way through until I came to Denver in 1991 to work afternoons at the Fox.
Mm-hmm.
And in the afternoon on KYGO was a guy whose name was Michael O'Shea. And in the afternoon on KOA was a guy whose name was Steve Kelly. So they didn't want me to be Kelly O'Shea. I had to get lost in the mix. And you can't just go back to your regular name after you've had a radio name.
Right.
So then the radio name Alan Roach just came about. And it's worked out great. I love it. I love being called Roach. And really 99.9% of the people that have any idea who I am only know me as Alan Roach.
That was my experience as well, and so that was news to me. It's funny because I look back when I was working at a TV station in Washington. I was working in Spokane, Washington. We had this reporter whose name was Kevin Coe, and he got hired on to be a news reporter. But at the time, there had been this huge case a few years back of this notorious serial killer in that area whose name was also Kevin Coe. So the news directors were like, you got to change your name, man. You can't be Kevin Coe anymore.
Yeah.
So he changed his name to Kevin Kim, and I don't think he's ever changed it back. And I think the main reason, because like in media, when people know you for your stage name, it becomes who you are. And so, like you said, if you see someone at the grocery store and they recognize your voice or your face, like they know you as Alan Roach. They don't know you as your former name, that you used to go by. So media changes all of those things.
It causes issues at least once a week. Maybe almost once a day with something, because Kelly Burnham is my legal name, and it's on my driver's license and it's on my passport. And when I go to bigger events that use big time background searches for credentialing, like the NFL, the Olympics, all my credentials, none of them say Alan Roach. They have to have, and so people are like,
who are you? Yeah.
Well,
it's nice that you have an iconic voice. That does help, because people are like, okay, well, it sounds like him, even though it's a different name.
Or when I make a reservation online, and have, two different accounts, and I don't know which account I'm using. I show up, reservation for Roach.
Yeah, right.
We don't have that. Well, how about Kelly? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, wait, what are you trying to do? I'd be like, fake ID type of situation, trying to buy beer. I understand that completely. There was a time, too, in my life where when I was starting out, because my full name is Christian Saez, and when I was starting out, I had this realization that if you look at all of the top play-by-play broadcasters, they're mostly short and sweet names. Joe Buck, right? Bob Costas, especially first names. So I was like, well, maybe I shorten my name to Chris Saez. But my mom was an elementary school teacher, growing up, all the time I was growing up, and she had a lot of problem kids whose names were Chris. So she hated the nickname Chris. And she's like, you can't be called Chris. So I just kind of stuck with Christian. But as you know, no matter what your name is, the most important part is how you perform, how you handle your broadcast, how you handle your craft. And you've had the experience and the privilege of getting to call a ton of different games from a public address announcing standpoint. So you kind of already alluded to how you got started in broadcasting, but talk to me about how your career really unfolded. Did you always know you wanted to do broadcasting, or was that something that just kind of came up as something fun and, progressed into a career? How did that start?
Broadcasting, the radio part of it, in my sophomore year of high school, I had a class where one of the assignments was you got a paper that had 20 questions on it, and you had to ask someone in your profession that you wanted to be in these 20 questions, and then write a report. Well, I wanted to be in the FBI. So growing up in Brainerd, Minnesota, way up in the north in the sticks and trees, or lakes and trees, I didn't know anybody in the FBI. And of course, I waited until the night before that I was supposed to do the report, just like good high school kids do. Mm-hmm. And I talked to a friend who had had the class a year before, goes, I said I wanted to be a DJ. I called this guy at the radio station. The questions all matched kind of, and it was really easy.
Yeah.
Call the guy at the radio station, tell him you want to be a DJ. So I did. I called the guy at the radio station, said, yeah, my name's Kelly. I want to be a DJ. I asked him the 20 questions. And then it was a couple of months later, had a different class. And the assignment of that class was the entire class went to the radio station to record. Everybody recorded 20 seconds of a John F. Kennedy speech.
Oh.
And then it was played on Memorial Day or something. And so I walked into the production studio and I recorded 20 seconds of the John F. Kennedy speech, and I walked out. And the guy outside the production room said, hi, my name's so-and-so. I talked to you on the phone a couple months ago. Do you really want a job?
Wow.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so I started running the board, as it's known in the business, running the board for Minnesota Twins network games.
Yeah, an ancient craft as it is now. I mean, it's technology has progressed so much, but it is still the foundation. It's still the fundamentals of what it is to broadcast, and it's always fascinating hearing how people got started, because so many people have a unique perspective on that. But now, fast forward to where you are, you've gotten to call. I saw somewhere that you've been to more Super Bowls than Tom Brady has played in. You've called more Olympics than Michael Phelps has swam in. Does that ever, do you ever look back at when you started and have this surreal realization of where you are now and the amount of just insane events that you've been able to announce for?
Every day I sit down in a chair. I mean, even at the Avalanche, this is my 25th year, and just the last time I was there, 3 days ago, I sat down and there was somebody there who I had not met before, introduced myself, and told him I was there 25 years. And as I said that, I'm like, it's just amazing that, and the first Super Bowl I ever did in 2006 in Detroit, I thought, okay, this is the greatest moment of my life. I just said, good afternoon and welcome to Super Bowl 40. And then at halftime, I said, ladies and gentlemen, the Rolling Stones. It's like, okay, my life will not ever get any better than this moment. And that's the cool thing about Super Bowls, is there's one every year, and they're all pretty cool.
And it was just beginning. Yeah. I mean, it's so unique. And also being a, public address announcer that spans across more than just one sport. Because I think a lot of, good public address announcers have their one team that they, spend their entire career calling that one specific team or for that one specific stadium. And you've had the opportunity to jump from place to place and be able to kind of really make a really good living off of that. Was it always public address for you, or did, I know you did some radio, some talk stuff. Did you ever want to go into play-by-play? Was that ever something that you thought of? Because you got the voice for it.
At the same radio station in Brainerd, Minnesota that I started at, would have been right after I graduated from high school. So the following year, I was working at that radio station, and I did play-by-play of high school football and high school basketball. And I loved doing it. But then that job, after a year, they ran out of money. We don't need a sports director. We're not doing sports anymore. So sorry, you don't have a job anymore. And I moved from Brainerd to Garden City, Kansas, and started working at a country station and hated country at the time. I've grown up now. I kind of like some of the new country.
You're in Denver, of course.
But there was a time where I worked at 9 radio stations in 9 years in 5 states.
Wow. And did you have any doubts that this was what you wanted to do for your career? Because that can be a lot sometimes.
I knew radio was, but it was the music side of radio then.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd gotten away from play-by-play. I just did it for that 1 year and liked it. But once I started doing music, I was like, oh, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And actually in, 1988, I started working at a classic rock station. It was one of the first classic rock stations in the country. It was in Des Moines, Iowa, and, it was Led Zeppelin and Rolling Stones and Steppenwolf and Pink Floyd and all of that. And I basically played that genre of music from 1988 to the end of my time at the Fox, which was 2002. So that's 14 years of not playing any new songs. So you're playing the same several hundred songs for 14 years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Got to know a lot about the songs. I can tell you stories about Rolling Stones songs.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure you can. It's interesting because we talked about like how this industry, the broadcasting media industry, has evolved over the years. The music industry especially, I think, has taken one of the biggest hits, especially radio and music, because there's so much more accessibility to people having music just in their phones and stuff like that. But I could say, even from my own experience, because I started in radio, and this wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was probably 10 years ago that I started doing radio games in college. And even in just the 4 years that I had the opportunity to call games on the radio, there was like an art to it that I thought was unparalleled in other aspects of broadcasting, even television. I mean, you're painting a picture for an audience. You're sharing the emotions with the fans, especially in local college. Like I was the voice and the image of the team through the radio. And so there was that pride that you took in having that be the artistic form of broadcasting. Do you miss some of that too? Doing I mean, I know you still do a bunch of different things, but do you miss doing radio at that level, at that consistency, or are you happy with where you are?
I am just fine.
I believe it.
And PA is not that. That's kind of the difference when I explain to people what I do. I do play-by-play, but I don't paint any pictures. It's as black and white or as gray. That's what PA is supposed to be. PA isn't supposed to be, what a great pass, or man, he's fast around the edge. It's pass completed to, ball carried by. And so, my job's a lot easier.
It is. There's a structure to it for sure. I will say, though, I mean, and, I see if you kind of agree with this. I do feel like there is very much a conveyed emotion that you bring through doing public address announcing, even though you aren't necessarily doing the, kind of the color analyst side of play-by-play or anything like that. You're conveying emotion by how you're emphasizing words, how you're holding out your tones, like all of that kind of stuff. When you announce the Dallas Stars lineup, you're going to announce that a little bit different than when you announce the Avalanche lineup, right? Like there is an emotion that comes behind that.
And that started at the Rockies. When I started at the Rockies in 1993, baseball as a whole, Major League Baseball, was still very much conservative, almost kind of staunchy. And Bob Shepard, one of the greatest PA announcers of all time, his style was shortstop, Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
Jeter, shortstop.
Yeah.
That was his excitement. And so many of the PA announcers in Major League Baseball in the early 90s were much the same. First baseman, Thomas Davis. And that's what you did. Well, so I came into the Rockies and I was right fielder, number 10, Dante Bichette. And it worked because there were 81,000 people in Mile High Stadium on opening day of the Rockies in 1993. And it was a raucous football crowd for a baseball game. And people don't know, and it's true, I wouldn't say we were the first, but I would say we were on very much the right at the first or tied with the first. The Rockies were the first team to use player clips of music every time a player came up to bat.
Okay, interesting.
We were right at the beginning of that. Maybe another team or two had done it before us, but there weren't many.
Yeah.
And the Rockies started doing that right away, and that became something that allowed me to have that personality and have that excitable voice and to get away with it and turn the atmosphere into not just a low-key professional sounding, more of a, hey, it's a sporting event, it's okay to have fun here.
Yeah. Well, and I remember like one of my favorite parts of public address announcing is the emotion that you can bring to the fans and the fan engagement with you, you know? And like, there, for example, there was a guy who was playing on the Spokane Indians at the time. His name was Jake Hoover. So of course, you know, he's got his walk-up song playing and, you know, I go to announce his name and it's like, now batting for the Spokane Indians, number 21, Jake Hoover. And everyone in the crowd goes, Hoover, you know, and like having that emotion conveyed through a microphone and the crowd responding to that. I mean, there's no better feeling. It gives you goosebumps every time you hear a crowd respond to that. So I would imagine that's a pretty cool aspect of the job. But I want to ask some questions because you started talking about some stories of specific Colorado teams and some of your favorite memories here. So we got to hit this first break. But after the break, I do want to get some of your favorite Colorado sports memories from the teams here. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. Real quick, though, got to give a shout out to our friends over at Breckenridge Brewery. Breck Brew, as we all know them. They are the official craft beer of DNVR and my personal favorite beer. You know, if you're going to Avalanche games and also if you're watching Avs games, even if you're down here at the DNVR bar at home, they've got a perfect beer that pairs with that. Avalanche Amber Ale, one of my personal favorite beers of any beer out there on the market today. And of course, it's based after our very own Colorado Avalanche. But if, you know, maybe you want to go with some of the other teams too. Mile High City for the Nuggets, Broncos Country Pale Ale, Fun Slinger for the Broncos. And if you're not much of a beer person, maybe you go with the hard seltzer, Good Company hard seltzer. Breck Brew has you covered no matter what you are into. So be sure to stop by the farmhouse. Check out the beer locator at breckbrew.com to find a brew near you. Also got to give some love to our buddies over at Bet365 because at Bet365, we don't do ordinary and every single sport is epic when it comes to Bet365. And look, it's one of my favorite times of the year right now, folks. It is March Madness. We are just a couple days away from college basketball, getting back into the full swing of things. We've got a couple games actually going on over at Ball Arena this year, which is going to be incredible to see. But with that comes some awesome bets. I mean, it is my favorite time of year, partially because I enjoy betting on college basketball. It's crazy. I'm going to bet on pretty much every single underdog that first round. And we've done that the last few years here at DNVR. And I will say, I don't think we've ever lost money. We've at least broken even every time you've bet on those underdogs. And Bet365 has some great odds. Head over to Bet365, get the app, and use code DNVR365 when you sign up. Deposit $10. Choose between either a bet and get offer by placing a bet of $5 or more, getting $150 in bonus bets, or a first bet safety net offer by placing a bet of up to $1,000. If your qualifying bet loses, you receive a matched refund in bonus bets. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, back here on the Denver Sports Podcast, Christian Saez and the voice of Colorado sports, Alan Roach, joining me on the show. And you were kind of sharing some insight into some of your memories here in the Colorado sports world, specifically with the Rockies, which, you know, I mean, I know you haven't called Rockies games in a while, but I would imagine that, you know, getting to pretty much christen the team and be the voice of Coors Field and Mile High Stadium, you know, when the Rockies were starting out, it's a pretty good experiences. Were there some moments that stood out to you calling Rockies games in those years?
Yeah, I'm what the Rockies did for Denver sports in the 90s, you know, was unprecedented, I think. I mean, the town was so starved for baseball. The Zephyrs had been here for years, and you know, Major League Baseball had flaunted a baseball team in front of Denver several times. And when it finally happened, and they came in 93. Yeah, the first game, whatever, there were 82,000 at game 1 and 81,000 at game 2 and 80,000 at game 3. To this day, that's the most fans ever for a 3-game series, other than a weird preseason game in California one year. The 81,000 is the most to ever attend a regular season baseball game. And so, yeah, just everything about baseball then was so exciting. And to have all of those fans at the game every day, it wasn't your normal baseball game.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like going to a St. Louis Cardinals game with 30,000 people on a Wednesday afternoon. We had 71,000,
yeah.
you know,
oh my gosh,
every day in Mile High Stadium. And then for the first few years of Coors Field, it was sold out, 50,000 every single night. And the memories, I mean, it started with the first batter, Eric Young, the very first batter ever for the Colorado Rockies at home in Denver. Eric Young hits a home run.
Yeah.
And there's 82,000 people going crazy. Then the very first game in Coors Field, just 2 years later, and it was kind of a weird start to that year because of a lockout.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually the first professional baseball games in Coors Field were with replacement players.
Mm-hmm.
It was the Rockies and the Yankees, and nobody knows any of the names that played. And there's guys out there that were like, I played in the first ever baseball game at Coors Field, and now he, you know, is an insurance salesman or does something completely different.
Right.
But so the first major league game was against the Mets and went to the 14th inning, and it's got to be, you know, close to midnight or 1 a.m., whatever it was. It was probably 34 degrees outside. I was going to say,
it's probably freezing.
And Dante Bichette hits a solo home run in the 14th inning to win it.
I saw the clips of that. You know, I've seen them for years, but especially this year, because I know the Rockies are actually celebrating their 30th anniversary this year. So they're doing a big thing at Coors Field on April 26th, which was the 30th anniversary of, you know, that moment. And I got to say, I mean, Dante Bichette's going to be throwing out the first pitch. And I mean, a lot of those memories that Rockies fans have growing up have your voice in the background. I mean, I even was talking to someone, you know, telling them here in the office that you were going to be coming in and doing the show with me. And they were like, Alan Roach, you know, the voice of the Rockies. Like that was, you know, I mean, you've done so many other things aside from the Rockies, and you've been kind of far removed from the Rockies over the last few years, but there's still people in Colorado who remember that, who remember you. I also saw when I was doing some research before this, was it true that the Rockies held a contest when you announced that you were stepping down? When you left, and they held a contest to see who was going to replace you?
And Reed Saunders won that contest. I forget who the third finalist was. Connor McGahee was a finalist.
Okay, yeah. Now Broncos,
and Reed Saunders. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten who the third finalist was, but then Reed got it from there. Our job on the TV show contest was to narrow it down to 3.
That's and there was something like what 200 plus people initially submitted the clip or something like that.
They probably narrowed that down. I think we did the contest, and it was, you know, like an American Idol kind of thing. I
love that.
We did it at the sports column, as I recall. And that would have been, in the spring of 2007. Mm-hmm. So I had worked for the Rockies for 14 seasons, from 93 through 06. And, of course, most of those seasons, by July, the Rockies were 26 games out of first place. So I left in March of 07, said, sorry, too many games, got too many things going on, can't do Rockies anymore, need to spend more time with the family. Well, then the Rockies went to the World Series in 2007.
That's what I saw, the timing
Reed
of
Saunders'
that's tough.
First year, he's announcing World Series games, the only World Series games ever in Coors Field.
That is a bummer, but you did get to call a bunch of other really high profile events, aside from that. So aside from Rockies, all the other Colorado sports teams you've called, is there a specific memory from any of the other teams that you've called here in Colorado that stands out to you as something that just will live in your brain for infamy?
I get asked all the time, what's the coolest thing you've announced, the best event you've announced, the best moment that you've announced, and it's impossible to pick one.
Oh, I'm sure.
However, every time I say that and answer the question with it's impossible to pick one, the first thing that comes out of my mouth after that is Joe Sakic taking the cup from the commissioner, turning around and handing it to Ray Bourque. This is one of the most iconic moments ever in hockey. That happened right there.
Yeah, that is truly incredible. And then you got to see another, Stanley Cup championship not too long ago, and the Avs, creating history. It feels like every time they've gone to the Stanley Cup in that regard. For you, with the Broncos, like you spent some years doing the Broncos games, and then now you've gotten to transition to doing Vikings. I know that's your hometown team. That's your the team that you got to watch growing up, but being able to kind of have a couple different NFL teams that you've called games for, just how has that experience been like? Because I would imagine that's also extremely surreal getting to do NFL like that.
Yeah, it is. I remember doing, the Broncos for the first time, and actually the first NFL game I ever did PA for was Super Bowl 40. I had not done PA for a pro football game prior to that.
It's a good place to start.
The only football games I had done were 2 CU versus CSU Mile High Showdown games at Mile High Stadium. So getting to do the Super Bowl was cool, and then the Broncos started right after that. And that was great. And I loved the Broncos, and I wanted them to do well, and everybody I worked with was diehard Bronco fans, and I was a Bronco fan, but the Vikings were still out there because that's where I grew up. They're inside my heart. I've taken heat from this in Minnesota. People say, oh, that's the most ridiculous comment ever. The most excited I've ever been for a football game in my entire life was the very first preseason Vikings game I announced in 2016.
Wow.
In Minnesota. It was surreal to me that, thinking back to when I was 3 years old, playing with my Vikings football cards on the floor, lining them up the way, they were lined up on the TV screen and moving them around, that now I'm sitting in the Vikings stadium saying, please welcome our Minnesota Vikings. It was like, wow.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine the feelings, the emotions around that. I know, you've been able to do the World Cup. You've been able to do Super Bowls, the Olympics, a ton of different sports. Is there one sport in particular that you love calling the most? Hockey, football, baseball, basketball? Is there one specific sport that you're like, if I could, do more of that, I would continue to do that?
They can all be really, really fun to watch and really, really fun to be at and really, really fun to be a part of. But strictly on my job, what is the most fun? Football is the easy answer because every play I'm doing something different. And I don't know what I'm going to say until I say it. I look at the play and then I say who carried the ball or who caught the ball or what happened. Whereas in baseball, you're doing the exact same thing over and over and over. In hockey, you're waiting for a goal or waiting for a penalty. But in football, you're so into the game and have to be so focused on the game because you're doing that skeleton play-by-play.
Is there a specific player? Because I saw someone in the chat earlier was saying, was bringing up the Larry Walker call that you used to have. Is there a specific player whose name you remember that was one of your favorite names to call? Like I gave the example of Jake Hoover just because the crowd was so engaged with that specific name. Is there a player that stands out to you?
Yeah, it's many. And it started with the Rockies because it was so new to everyone and it was new to me. And I think, to be honest, I think I scared the hell out of the Rockies management the first couple of games. They were
good.
This is not really how baseball PA is supposed to go. Yeah. But they're like, there's 82,000 people here and they're all cheering. Yeah. So it's not broke. To the Dante Bichette was, the first one that I really kind of seemed like I went overboard on. And then Larry Walker came the next year. And then for the Avalanche, I'm announcing Patrick Waugh and I'm announcing Peter Forsberg and Joe Sakic.
Yeah.
And so, all the names have become fun, but just because it was new back at the beginning, those older guys from back in the day are still on the top of the list.
Oh, absolutely. Iconic players, iconic names, and that I'm sure always holds true. But One of the questions I've been wanting to ask, because, as someone who's broadcasted before, and also I think even if you just talk to people off the streets, if, like, oh my gosh, I'd be so nervous if I was calling games or whatever. Is there a moment that you've ever had a slip up on the air where you've, read the wrong name or said the wrong thing? So I want to ask that in just a moment. Got to hit a break here real quick, but I'll let you think about it after this break. We'll get to that question. Before we get into that, though, got to give a shout out to our friends right now over at UC Health. The Denver Sports Podcast is brought to you by our friends at UC Health because they are the preferred partner of athletes here in Colorado. And look, it's summer. Summer's right around the corner. I mean, it feels like it. It's like 70 degrees outside right now. And it's a perfect opportunity for you to make a little changes in your life, to live a little bit healthier than you did yesterday, whether that's going and getting outside, getting a little extra sunshine, taking a walk in the morning, drinking a protein smoothie like we did this morning. Like, this is, it's just little stuff. Doesn't have to be huge changes, but those little changes that you make can help you live like there is a better tomorrow. So be sure to check out UC Health. Go to uchealth.org for more information. UC Health, live extraordinary. Also got to give some love to our friends over at Toyota, because Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR and pretty much every single one of our sports teams here in Colorado. And I got to say, I've been driving a Toyota my entire, adult life, at least as long as I can remember driving. I started out with a Camry, and now I'm driving my Toyota Highlander, and it is still getting me from point A to point B, 250,000 miles. Toyotas last forever. They are a reason that they are one of the best cars out there. And so be sure to check them out. They have so many different makes and models, over 17 different models available with all-wheel drive. So, if you're living here in Colorado, you got to make sure you have a car that can get you where you need to go no matter what the weather is. Toyota has you covered. So visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. Well, that was a mouthful, and I imagine you've had some moments in your career. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, where you've had a extensively long read or a name that just got tricky. Is there anything that comes to mind where you've totally botched a read and you were like, yeah, that didn't sound good?
It wasn't botched a read, but I've told this story before, and it's the most glaring mistake that I ever made. And like oftentimes with people that talk for a living, whether on radio or TV, sometimes you say something and you don't even know.
Yeah.
You're just doing your job, you say it, and after you get done, you have to watch the tape.
Yeah.
To say, wow, did I say that? Right. So it was this great story. Coors Field. I don't know what year, late 90s, early 2000s, someone can look it up to know what day it happened. It was the day that Mark McGwire got traded from the Oakland A's to the St. Louis Cardinals. Tony La Russa was already the manager of the Cardinals at that time and had been with Mark McGwire in Oakland. So it was huge news that Mark McGwire was going to join Tony La Russa at the Cardinals. And the trade came down at like 6:30 at night. And the Rockies had a game that day. And so, as the PA announcer, I sat in the press box at that time with all of the writers. Mm-hmm. So for an entire hour, all I heard around me was, Mark McGwire got traded. Mark McGwire got traded. Mark McGwire got traded. Mark McGwire, Mark McGwire, Mark McGwire. And so we're playing the Cubs that night. And it's, I don't know, third inning, whatever it was. And the first baseman for the Cubs came up. He's number 17. His name's Mark Grace. And so I said, first baseman, number 17, Mark McGwire. And I was done, and I let go, and I saw all the heads in the stands turn around and look at me, and I heard media people say, what did you say? Yeah. Like, what? I had no idea.
That's good.
Mark McGwire grounded out to the second baseman on the first pitch, and as he come back, he ran back to the dugout. You could see him looking up into the press box. So I let it go. So 7 years later, Mark Grace was doing TV for the Arizona Diamondbacks, I think. And I saw him in the hallway at Coors Field one day. And I said, hey, Mark, my name's Alan Roach. I'm the PA announcer. Do you remember back on... Yes, I remember. I MF'd you all the way back to the dugout.
You're right. Oh my God.
Because I grounded out on the first, or grounded into a double play, maybe even. That was your fault.
Yeah, you set the bar pretty high for him there. That's a tough shoes to fill. I find that tends to happen from a play-by-play standpoint with like sponsored stuff, especially when I was doing local high school football and high school basketball. A lot of times we had sponsored ads that were like built into specific plays. So we'd have the George Gee first down. Anytime someone would get a first down, you'd say, that's another George Gee first down or whatever. And then I went over to do basketball, and I remember there was a moment where this guy hit a three, and one of our reads was, anytime someone hits a three, it's a George Gee three. And I go, that's a George Gee first down. And I didn't realize it until I got home and went back and I was clipping up the broadcast to like put onto my reel, and I hear it and I'm like, why didn't my mom should have texted me or something, right? Like you don't even notice that you do it sometimes, but that is part of the way it goes.
That's one of the things I have to focus on and concentrate on all the time, because there are times where over a 4-day period, I'm doing a baseball game with 2 teams, a football game with 2 teams, and a hockey game with 2 teams. And I have to not say the wrong team name somewhere.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
I don't think it's ever happened. I hope it never does. But it's always, and there are times where I'm at an Avalanche game and I'm like, Denver, Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I catch myself before it actually comes out.
Well, and messing up a player name is different than messing up a team name. If you get that wrong, people seem to notice a little bit more. But it's still, it lives in the back of your head. But it's also something that, as a professional, like you tend to think about it more when you're away from broadcasting than when you're doing it. Like you said, you could probably count on one hand the amount of times you've actually slipped up while doing, any sort of announcing. It's
a couple hands.
Yeah, a couple hands. So you've been doing this for a little bit of time, but once you get out there and you've got your reads in front of you, you've got your lineups, all of that kind of stuff, it becomes second nature, I would imagine.
I remember one of the hardest reads, and for a much different reason, one of the hardest reads I had, and it was very long. It was probably nothing but me talking for over 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, many pages of a script. It was the first baseball game in Coors Field after 9/11. And it was, recognizing first responders and telling a story and just whatever it was that was in that read. And it was incredibly difficult to get through.
Oh, I'm sure. And also, the emotions behind it. Yeah. And that's the type of stuff where you're like, okay, you mess up a player name, even you mess up a team name, people will forgive you. The world will keep spinning. You mess up something like that, it's like you just that weight weighs so much heavier on your shoulders. So
thankfully I had much rehearsal that day.
Sure.
I'd seen the script hours before, because the first few times I read it, I got choked up and had to stop.
Do you? So that's actually a good segue. Do you do a lot of rehearsal for your when you're announcing a game? Do you rehearse a great deal, or is that just something you kind of have done it enough, you flow into it? How does your process look like when you approach a broadcast?
Depends on what you mean by rehearse. For the Super Bowl, we rehearse 16 hours. We rehearse the national anthem. By the time you see the national anthem on TV, I have seen that national anthem singer sing the national anthem 8 times.
So you saw John Bautiste did it this year? Yep.
So I've seen it so many times. Mm-hmm. And same thing with America the Beautiful and the Walter Payton and the different stuff that I do on TV for the Super Bowls. We announce those, we rehearse those things over and over and over with network TV, with the in-house television, and the PA and the DJ. That stuff is rehearsed to death.
Yeah.
At an Avalanche game, no, there's not a rehearsal before every game. Many of the reads that I have, the commercial type reads in between during whistles, during intermissions, most of those are the same. But yet, even though they are the same, and some of those reads have been the same for 15 or 20 years.
Sure.
Every day, I sit down before the game or while the game is going on, and I look ahead to see what is coming, and I read through it. Sometimes you get a new script writer, or maybe you cut and paste the wrong thing. There's times where I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that and reading it live, it's a lot harder to correct it than it is if you look at it beforehand. So, lesson for the wannabe PA announcers: take the 8 minutes to read through your script before the game starts, so you're not surprised when you're doing it live.
I can speak from experience. That is definitely
even when you've done it for 25 years. Still do that.
No, surprises in the middle of a read is never something you want to experience. That'll get your heart racing pretty quick.
There's times where I'm reading, and be sure you come down to, I don't even know what this is saying anymore.
Right. You're like, I'm lost.
This makes no sense.
I'm bailing. Bail out on this. Yeah. Well, I mean, you've done this long enough to know how to get out of those kind of situations if you need to. But is there, when you're training I don't know, maybe you didn't train your voice because you seem to just have a naturally low voice, but do you do a lot of stuff in the background to prepare your voice for games? How do you take care for people watching online that, maybe you want to go into broadcasting one day? How do you take care of yourself throughout the year vocally?
I don't smoke anymore. I don't drink coffee. Never have. Don't drink soda pop. All that stuff's kind of bad for your
soda
vocal cords.
Kills your voice, yeah.
And the most important thing, and I was told this by my throat doctor specialist, Dr. Buzz, if anyone knows Dr. Buzz, the rock doc, who's been around rock and roll shows in Denver forever. Way back early on, he told me about called Neil Med nasal rinse. He said, do it twice a day, every day. You won't get sick. And it took me 6 years of him telling me that and not doing it before I finally started doing it. And it was I remember 2010 when I first started. And what Neil Med sinus rinse is, do you know what a neti pot is?
I've heard of them. A neti
pot is, you put water into a little teapot, and then you put a salt packet in there, and it mixes up. And then you gently pour it into one nostril, and stuff comes out. And then you gently pour it in, and the stuff comes out. Okay, that's fine. Neil Med nasal rinse is a water bottle with a spout on top, and you fill it up with water, and you put the salt in there, and you put it in one side of your mouth, and you squeeze, so you fire hose out the other side. Put it over here, fire hose out the other side. Man. And it's gross. It's super gross.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't get sick. Hardly ever at all.
Yeah.
And the thought behind it is that I was told by the doctors is that when germs enter your body, cold type germs, they enter most always through your eyes or through your nose. Mm-hmm. And what they do is they don't enter your body and then boom, zoom through your body and make sick. They enter your body and they go live in your nose for a couple of days and grow and multiply and become strong.
Interesting.
And then they go throughout your body and make you sick. So if you do not allow them to grow inside your nose, you don't get sick.
Fascinating. Yeah. I was just talking to someone out in the lobby before the show, and I was saying, like it's challenging sometimes to keep yourself healthy throughout, and especially during cold season. You're calling basketball games, you're doing hockey, you're doing, the end of football season, and people are getting sick around you. And if you get sick and you have to miss a week of work, like, I made the equivalent of like, a broadcaster getting strep is like an athlete tearing their ACL, right? Like if you're out for weeks, that's impacting your job, right? So you've got to take care of it.
Hand sanitizer. I cleaned this mic with hand sanitizer before I started today.
Totally.
Every single Avalanche game, every Vikings game, every microphone I ever encounter, other than the one in my studio at home, I clean it every day.
It is truly, one of the most underrated parts of being a broadcaster is you just have to be available all the time. Yeah. And it's not available like you're just sitting there typing on a computer and you can get away with being sick. Like if you're sick, I mean, the Coke thing that you brought up, or the soda, was interesting because I don't drink soda almost at all. But there was one game this year that I came down with a little bit of a throat bug. And this was, a couple months ago. And my throat was already kind of sore. And I remember I was driving out to do a game. My wife was in the car with me and she had a soda. And my throat was just so dry. And I was like, you know what? I don't have water with me. I'm just going to take one sip of this. And the sugar caked in my throat. And I sounded awful that day. Not just like, like your voice wasn't as clean as it normally is. Like, no, I mean, it sounded as if I had been smoking for 60 years. My voice was just wheezing and my range I couldn't go up for, bigger shots, that kind of stuff. It truly like took me out for that entire game, and I'm lucky I even got through it, but I'm sure the product was terrible on the back end of it. So it's like one of those things that I'm like, I will never do that again. Like, even if my throat is as dry as possible, like just anything with sugar, coffee, that kind of stuff. It's fascinating. And again, it's an underrated part of being a broadcaster, but taking care of your voice, your health is how you continue to broadcast. Like, that's just the way it is.
I'm lucky too. I think my body, I mean, this is all I've done. I've used my voice as my job since I was 17 years old. And I'm a little older than 17 now. So my body knows this is what you do. This is the routine. This is what we have to get through. So I think a lot of it is, to some degree psychological, that I will myself not to get sick.
Absolutely.
And I'm very, what's the word? Sensitive to feeling something. Like, I can tell that I might be getting a cold in 2 or 3 days long before other people can kind of tell. I can tell by a taste in my mouth. I can tell by a little feeling somewhere in there. And then I start treating it right away. Yeah.
It's important. It's important. But speaking of important, you have some awesome projects coming up. We're going to pause for our last break. After the break, I want to talk about some of the new stuff you're working on
Ballpark DJ.
And all the good stuff. So yeah, we'll pause for a quick moment and then come back with more on that. All right, back here on the Denver Sports Podcast, Christian Saez, Alan Roach here in studio with me today. And Alan, you are in the process of kind of working with a new venture right now, bringing the voice of many different broadcasters, public address announcers, and yourself included, to the community. Talk to me a little bit about what that's all about and what Ballpark DJ is.
Ballpark DJ is an app that you get on your smartphone. It's been around for 8 years, I believe. And basically, it is designed to give young kids, or more so the parents of young kids, the ability to have professional announcers announce your 6-year-old or your 8-year-old or your 14-year-old as they walk up to the plate. Now batting, number 7, Johnny Thomas. And it was a genius idea by a man named Chad, who lives in Atlanta, his project. And he started it 8 years ago. And there were 8 professional voices. Many of them, I think 4 or 5 of them, are from Major League Baseball teams. And so they have announced young players as they walk up to the plate all over the country. And I was asked to be a part of that just this year. I've only done it for a month, maybe even a little less than a month now, and announced thousands of names. And again, it's from 4 and 5-year-old kids playing t-ball to high school kids playing softball and baseball. And the app itself is what makes it so amazing. The idea is incredible and the thought is wonderful, but it's the app and all the things that the app can do. And the app is really easy for me to record, but more so it's really easy for people to use. And we talked about walk-up songs. If you want, if your 7-year-old needs to hear the walk-up song after they hear their name announced, you can do that right in the app. You punch a couple of buttons and it's there, and boom, every time they walk up to bat, you get to hear the name and the walk-up song.
I love that.
And then there's other features of the app where home run. I announced 76 different things that can happen in a baseball game. Stolen base, caught stealing, now pitching, now catching, great catch, what a throw, home run, double, triple. And just by pushing buttons on your phone, you can basically do, skeleton play-by-play of your kid's baseball game.
That's awesome.
And the kids love it because of, the atmosphere that it adds at a baseball game.
Makes you feel like you're in a big league stadium, right?
Walk up to the plate and hear your name. Woo!
Yeah.
And the parents love it. Some of those that know what I do or know my background, the parents probably know a lot more about me than the kids do.
Yeah.
And the parents are more, the Super Bowl announcer is announcing Johnny.
Oh, it's so cool. I mean, I remember back in high school, it was such a thing. Like we played a game at the Tacoma Rainier Stadium, which is a AAA for the Mariners, and I thought it was the greatest thing in the world because I'm like this high school baseball player that's getting to play in a big league stadium, And I don't think we had a public address announcer at the time. Like, I think it was just, it was just a high school game. So there was nothing, no, broadcasting side of it. But being able to have, if I had had the opportunity to have like someone announce me as I was coming up to hit, I might have hit a home run, right? It just sets the stage for the experience. That's so cool.
It's just another way kids sports has changed over the years. I mean, back when I played, there was, one coach, and there wasn't really a team mom. There wasn't a need for all that. And now you've got all these different things, and now you kind of need a media director for your little kids baseball team to sit down and do that with their phone. But once you learn how to use that app and learn all the things that it can do, it's really amazing. Oh. And the cool part about the app is it's designed by a real guy, a guy that I know, and he's a good guy. And they have a customer service department that when you send an email, they like write right back to you. So if you're at the baseball field and like, I can't figure this out, by the time the next inning's over, you'll have it figured out because they'll help you. And it's just been a really fun thing. And I get a lot of comments back from the parents, oh, this is so great. Thank you for doing this for the team. And I don't hear from the kids themselves, but I imagine and I hope that the kids are walking up to the plate going, I'm going to hit the ball today, man.
Right. Well, and it was like this, I had an old coach in high school who his motto was look good, feel good, play good, right? And I feel like that's what that is like if you can allow your kid, your player, to look good, feel good, and play good, and part of that is the overall experience around that, that translates to them being able to play and feel confident and just have fun, right? I mean, that's part of why sports is such a blessing to many, is that it's just fun. It's just fun to get to do what you do. It's fun to get to hear your voice and get to kind of see how everything transpires around that. I know, speaking of, something similar to that, you've worked with some video games in the past as well too, doing like similar type of on-demand type calls. And I would imagine, so like if you did Madden, right? Madden was one of the video games.
EA Sports Madden and EA Sports FIFA Soccer, but I do the MLS games in that FIFA game. And I also did the 2018 World Cup names in that BC. So for that,
do you have to go through and record just a database worth of potential, outcomes?
Yes. At the beginning, take Madden, which was the most in-depth and the most things that can go on. I mean, everything from a 1-yard gain to a 99-yard gain to a completed pass to a blocked field goal to a safety to whatever it is. The first time we did recordings, I probably did 30 hours of recording in order to get in the game. And now it's just maybe 4 hours a year, and it's just the new guys, the rookies that get drafted. Even when players change teams, I don't need to redo anything because the system automatically stitches them together the way they're supposed to be. Yeah,
it's interesting because I've heard a couple play-by-play guys who have done an interview talking about their experience doing Madden or MLB The Show and those kind of things, and it's fascinating to hear how like you wouldn't think about that when you're just playing the game from home, but anything that you do, any outcome that's possible in the game has to be pre-recorded.
I physically said that.
Yeah, like you have to have this just massive database.
But I don't say the whole line. Like when what happens is Kirk Cousins pass complete to Derek Alexander, a gain of 7, second down and 3. I never said that sentence.
Yeah.
I said each little piece of that sentence.
It's like a puzzle.
Kirk Cousins pass. I said complete to Johnny Russell, and I said a gain of 4, but I never said all those things together.
That's awesome. It's so fascinating how all of that stuff works. I can't, can't do an interview with you without also bringing up the fact that you are the voice of the Denver International Airport, all of the train system. Does that ever feel trippy to you when you go fly somewhere and you walk into the train and you're like, that's my voice? Is it weird for you to hear your voice like it is for so many other broadcasters?
It's been on there almost 20 years now, 19 years, I think. I honestly, for the most part, don't even notice it anymore.
Sure.
But what I do notice is, I don't have my headphones on. Because usually I'll put headphones on and have music so I can't hear it.
Yeah.
So there'll be times I get on the train and it's like, hold on. Oh, that's me again.
Yeah.
And then grab my headphones and put them on so I don't have to listen.
Right.
But it's a great gig. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
sure.
prestigious. It's an honor. All of those things, and I get so many comments. And you think of 17 Super Bowls and 6 Olympics and all those things you've mentioned that I've had the joy to announce. I've probably been heard by more people in the Denver airport than all of those other things.
One of the biggest airports in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was probably the first time I had ever heard your voice when I went came to Colorado for the first time to visit a campus and stepped into the airport, right? Like that's the way that things go sometimes.
And one of the dumbest questions I've ever received in my life, and if you're out there, I don't know who you were, that I don't remember if it was on Twitter or email or text or what. Roach, are you actually at the airport doing those announcements live?
Really? That's a tough one. That's a tough one. You're like,
I think it was the whole, you are delaying the departure of this train. It's like, are you like watching on a camera and you do that live? No, no, that's actually recorded.
You're in many places all at once. Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of what you do is it does feel like you're in many places all at once. I mean, I would imagine you live here in Colorado, but you go back to Minnesota to call, to do the Viking games. How do you manage just the schedule of all of this kind of stuff? Because it's a lot of travel.
It's kind of second hat now, and it's nice. I get, some upgrades on airlines now because flying around. But the Vikings make it super easy. They allow me to buy my own flights, and I have family there. So there's times I'll fly to a Viking game on Thursday and I'll hang out with family on Friday and Saturday and do the game and fly home, or stay after a game for a couple of days. Or there's other times where I get into Minneapolis at 9:00 on Saturday night. I do the game noon on Sunday, and on 5:00 Sunday afternoon, I'm flying back home.
Yeah, I got to ask, because you've done, I mean, again, your resume is extensive. You've done pretty much every major sporting event in the world. Is there anything that you haven't done yet that you have in your mind of like, I still want to do that before I retire?
It's crazy. Exactly a year ago, I was speaking to a group in Minneapolis, and I got asked that question, and I said, well, I don't really have a good answer for that. My answer used to be, I would love to do the World Cup. And then in 2018, I got to do the World Cup. And the guy that asked the question said, you should announce golfers on a tee at a golf tournament. What a great idea. Last year, I got to announce Live Golf in Nashville, Tennessee on the party hole, and announced every golfer that walked up to the tee. So I've now done that. So I don't know. I don't know what's next. But surprise me. Shoot me an email. Yeah, let me know.
Right. I'm sure there's something.
What is it I'm missing? What do we need to do next?
At least you didn't have to do Major League Baseball's opening day here in Tokyo. That first pitch was at 4:00 this morning. I don't think many of us here in Colorado.
I did that game last year. The games last year were in South Korea.
Really?
In Seoul, South Korea.
I did not see that.
And I did those games in Seoul, South Korea last year. But Major League Baseball has an announcer that they use at the World Cup of Baseball? What is it?
World Baseball Classic.
World Baseball Classic. Yep. They have a Japanese and English-speaking announcer that they use all the time. So I didn't get to go to Japan.
Have you ever done any World Baseball Classic games?
I haven't.
Okay, so that might be one.
I've been close a couple of times, but always at the end, it's like, no, we're going to use somebody else.
Yeah, it's oh wow, they've ended up going with someone else. Wow, I feel like that's pretty bold to turn down your resume. But World Baseball Classic, I mean, out of from a baseball perspective, there were some huge. I went to Team USA versus the Dominican Republic World Baseball Classic Championship in LA. 8 years ago or something like that. And that was one of the craziest sporting events I'd been to. Again, almost the World Cup of baseball. But there's probably not a lot out there that you haven't done yet. So you never know. Maybe you'll get surprised one day. A lot of stuff in the community.
I'm ready for the surprise. The Ballpark DJ thing came out of nowhere. Yeah,
that's what I mean. Like a lot of stuff in the community might be cool. What's the weirdest sport? We're wrapping things up here, but what's the weirdest thing you've ever in your entire career? Because I mean, for me, I was ultimate disc golf was one of the weirdest sports I've ever done.
I've done that at halftime of football games. I've never done an actual game. I did some rugby tournaments in Glendale, and they were international rugby tournaments called the Churchill Cup, I think. Probably the most bizarre thing that I ever got hired to be the announcer for was called Behind the Chair, and it was a 3-day long hairstylist convention in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Wow.
But I did basically the same thing. I announced people as they came up on stage. Now, please welcome from Revlon.
Yeah. Hey,
Yep.
a gig's a gig, right?
Yeah.
That's the way
Yeah.
it goes. I mean, you had said to me before the show, like if there was any advice you'd give to young broadcasters, it's say yes to everything, right?
Yep.
And even at your age, although I'm sure you're a little pickier now, but even at your experience level, you know, I'm sure there's still part of that mindset that continues to play.
Everything, if you're young and upcoming and want to do this, every place that you go to announce something, there's the chance that there's someone there who tomorrow or a year from now is going to need an announcer for their event.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you begin stacking events together. And then once you are at an event and you act respectively and you do a professional job, then you're going to get asked back.
Yeah.
And that starts to snowball. And I started doing this in 1990. So that was 34 years ago. Well, it took about 17 years for that snowball to get big enough to make this my job.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's slow going at the beginning. You're going to not get paid a lot of money. You're going to work some crappy hours. You're going to have a real job in addition. But there can be a light at the end of the tunnel, and that's what I found out. And I didn't know there would be a light at the end of the tunnel while I was doing it.
Feels like you're
I
driving
just hoped
blind,
there was.
right? Feels like you're driving blind, hoping that you're going to come around the corner and something's going to be there. And we're all very grateful that you've been able to make a mark here in the Colorado sports community. Alan, thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure.
Tell people where they could find you on socials or even also Ballpark DJ. You know, give people where they can get a hold of you.
Ballparkdj.com, or just search your app store for Ballpark DJ, and it's that simple. And I don't do a ton of social media, but I do play around on. I like to send a picture of all of the cool events I get to go to. I get my microphone just right in my papers, and I take a picture before the Super Bowl
The
or
classic.
before a baseball game, whatever it is. And I'm on X, and that's at Mile High Roach.
Love it. Appreciate the time as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This has been the Denver Sports Podcast. We'll see you guys right here next time on DNVR.
We all silly like the mayor.